if you can be who you are in the business setting, you have a lot more fun, it's a lot fulfilling, and gives you a lot more endurance and longevity because you don't have to flex so hard trying to be somebody you're not. Replenish your relationships, replenish your spiritual health, your physical health, your mental health, and people just forget about those things like they're some kind of robot.
Real estate professionals, welcome back to the RMG Agent Podcast. I'm your host, Reed Moore. As always, we're here to impact, empower, and encourage you in your real estate career. And if you want more of the goodies that come along with all these episodes, including our action guides, please go to rmgagentpodcast.com and like, subscribe, share with somebody you love. It helps us a ton to be able to continue to produce content for you on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and all the other major platforms. We are back in our Masters series, and I am absolutely thrilled to be able to be here with you guys with a dear friend of mine, business partner of mine, and genuinely swell guy, Blake Elder.
Genuinely swell.
Yeah,
you know, I do get that a lot, Reed. Thank you.
I'm working on my adjectives.
Wow.
Right?
Okay, dig deeper.
Oh my gosh. All right, so Blake, you and I have been in business together now for how long?
Coming up on 10 years.
10 years.
No, 11 years.
Yeah.
That's right.
I love it. So you're a vice president in RMG.
Yep.
You've sold a lot of real estate. You have a great investing mind. We do investing together. And you not only do you produce, but you also lead agents. Mm-hmm. And you've led agents for a long time now through hard times and other hard times, and then some different
and some good times.
And some good times. So I'll just kind of start the way we usually start it, which is, so why should somebody listen to you?
Yeah, really good question. So I'm going to see how many quotes I can put in today. So I'm going to quote one of my great mentors and a friend, Jay Bruzis, and maybe you shouldn't.
Yeah, Jay was on the Master Series. It's like, that's the best answer.
So I guess it depends on what the listeners are trying to do. Maybe they should listen to me. Maybe they shouldn't. Depends on what they're trying to do. So if they are wanting to learn and grow in leadership, if they're wanting to grow and learn in investing, if they're wanting to grow and learn in adventure and figuring out how to get out of self-imposed problems, I can be their guy. I've got some time in the trenches in each one of those.
So let's talk about self-imposed problems, because that I'm curious about that.
Well, there's people like you and I, Reed, and then there's boring people, and so, no, all kidding aside, I kind of measure the success I have in any given year based on the amount of times I find myself in an out-of-body experience, like, what am I doing? What have I gotten myself into? And how am I going to get out of this? So I love adventure. If there's a door, it's meant to be opened. And I love that. So I end up in a lot of interesting situations that make good stories later. And you've been part of a lot of those. So
yes, we have some good stories.
It's a lot of fun.
Okay, so tell me more just about adventure and about how you think about that and how you integrate that into business and leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been very adventurous my whole entire life, right? One of my heroes growing up was Huck Finn, and so I thought I was going to be him, and so I'd run away all the time and be home by dinner, and not a lot has changed, from 6-year-old Blake to now however old I am, and so I love adventure, and that isn't just in the outdoors and those kind of things, but I found that if you can be who you are in the business setting, you have a lot more fun, it's a lot fulfilling, and gives you a lot more endurance and longevity because you don't have to flex so hard trying to be somebody you're not.
Yeah.
And so in the business space, every day's an adventure. Literally, we can go do whatever we want and create a business and create a way to do business and do that with fun people in the business world, which is just amazing because that's what adventure is. It's the unknown. It's having a plan that you think's probably going to go right, and then it interacts with reality, right?
Yes.
And getting to do that with people that you enjoy being around, and that's what we get to do in the business world too. So.
Okay, so let's riff on this adventure mindset because I love this, right? When things get hard in business, people's mindset's kind of like fractured in one of two ways, right? And when you talk about adventure, My experience with adventure, which is not as much as yours, but I have some, right? Like a good vacation isn't great unless you almost die.
Yeah.
That's not going to resonate with everybody, but it's pretty
Or at
great.
least get lost a little.
Yeah, get lost a little, all the, get stung by a jellyfish, just something needs to happen. But the interesting thing about adventure is the thing that makes adventure is actually things not going right or things being harder than you anticipated, or like there's just elements of that, right? And nobody who likes adventure would do adventure if it didn't have all of those elements. So how do you bring that mindset into business? What are the commonalities?
So I think any good adventure starts with a goal, some destination, what we're trying to do. Sometimes it's just you're wandering around in the forest, but usually there's some kind of goal. We're going to go to this place. We're going to do this hike. We're going to ride from here to there. We're going to do something, right? Mm-hmm. And then there's some preparation. So you want to plan. You want to be as prepared as you can. You don't want to unnecessarily put yourself at risk. You're going to encounter problems, but inevitably the problems that you're going to face, you don't know which one they're going to be, right? So some level of uncertainty and risk. I think those are three major elements of adventure. And I would argue the fourth one often is other people. Like solo adventures are fun, but most of the time it's fun with other people, and usually because you have to have other people.
Yeah.
Or you can't do your whole life solo adventuring. For me, it's not as much fun.
Yeah. So you have a goal or a destination, you have a plan, there's preparation.
Yep.
There's also maybe this understanding that the preparation is because things at some point won't go as planned.
Yep.
And all of that actually is kind of almost like a formula for adventure.
Yeah. I'm going to bring these 25 things with me, and maybe I'll need 2 of them. Maybe I'll need 40 things and have to figure it out, right? And that's how a lot of it goes.
Yeah.
Half the things you bring with you don't need, but you should have brought all that other stuff. But now for next time, like there's no way to become an old wise man without being a stupid young man first.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay, so I know a lot of your adventures end up being kind of in the endurance space. Mm-hmm. So talk to me about, so you have done endurance mountain runs, you've done endurance snow machining races, which for people who live in America. Snowmobiles or sleds.
Yep. Did I use the right tone?
Yes, snowmobiles, right? Literally the only place in the world that calls them a snow machine.
Well, I met the guy who invented that saying. Oh, that's a story for another day.
Oh, so let's just pick an endurance sport and let's talk through what have you learned about that applies to somebody who is in an endurance race in their business right now.
So there's this test that I used to use because I didn't always used to be into endurance sports. I used to do like backcountry riding and hit really big jumps and hit ramps and stuff like that. And I would always be attracted to the really dangerous things. Like if you jump off this cornice and tap your brakes just right, you can clear the next ridge and then continue floating down the mountain for 200 feet. But if you don't hit your brakes just right, you're going to clip that ridge and cartwheel down that way, right? And so I'd always be attracted to these things. My friends would make fun of me. They're like, why don't we go find something that doesn't have such a high level of problem? And I started getting to this really good test. If this goes really, really well, will I like the outcome?
Okay.
And so that's a good test for a lot of things. If this goes well, will I like the outcome? Because maybe it's just me, but I feel like a lot of people are attracted to the challenge. And we see that in people picking up hobbies. They really like the learning phase, but then they're not actually into whatever the hobby is if they become proficient at it. So if this goes really, really well, will I like the outcome? Applies in endurance sports, right?
Okay, yeah.
Hey, apart from like the excitement of signing up for a long 100-mile foot race or 2,600-mile snow machine race, if I'm just out there in the wilderness for 7 days in a row, do I like that, right? And
Good question.
So that applies to any business endeavor too. Like if I actually get to the other side of the growth curve and I'm proficient at this career, would I like that? And a lot of people can't answer yes, and they shouldn't start that thing, right?
Yeah, it's really interesting. One of the things we were doing a training over at my house a couple of weeks back, and we were talking about maturing and maturity, and how there's this element of people want to in their career they want to match passion with purpose. And my conversation with him is I think that that's actually not the right formula. It's matching skills with purpose and doing it long enough to where the passion shows up.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
How does that, did you just always love endurance, like going out for running for 70 miles?
No, I didn't even know people could do that, right? My wife, Natalie, got involved. She was doing this fitness coaching, and she just got in incredible shape, and she's all about this, and she signed up for a half marathon as part of this thing. And it was like 2015 or 2016. And so she signed up for this half marathon, and she was doing the running plan, and she was gone all the time. She was running for like minutes at a time and then hours at a time. And I was so blown away by that. I didn't even know people could do that. So I started running with her because I was just missed her, right? Mm-hmm. And so we were running, and I remember the first time we had a run that was over 1 hour. And I'm like, I don't think people can run that long. I don't
this is not natural.
I think that you printed the running plan wrong. I don't think this is it. I don't think it's a thing. And then we did. And it was fall time in Alaska, and it was raining. And right after church, we went and we did it, and we ran. And I was like, I didn't know people could run that long. And then we did the half marathon, and it was an incredible experience. And then I'm like, there's people out here that are running longer than a half marathon. Like I grew up in Big Lake. I didn't know people ran for fun, right?
Yeah. Ran for moose.
Yeah. Like, if you're running, it's because you were on the football team, or you weren't, I don't know. You just, you use motors for stuff. So I saw these people at the half marathon. They were running marathons twice as long as we ran. And I'm like, I need to sign up for that. And so I did. And it was the worst experience of my life. It was so hard. And so at the end of that marathon, all my family came, and they were celebrating and supporting, and my friends. And, I've been very blessed to have a lot of people support whatever adventure I'm doing. But I remember at the finish line, I was so mad. I went and sat in the outhouse, and I was just so mad that this experience was so awful. And so I was just, locked myself in the outhouse to be mad for a while. And then by the time I got to the car, I'm like, I need to sign up for another one. This can't be how this is. I need to clear the record, right?
Yes. Can't go out like that.
Yeah. And you, of course, you were doing Ironman stuff at that point. And I'm like, I must have missed something. I thought this was supposed to be fun. This was so hard. This was dumb. And so I signed up for another one and trained better and did better, and it was amazing. And then I was like, well, if people can run for this long, I wonder how long. And at that same event, some people were running a longer race than the marathon. I'm like, I keep getting ripped off.
I thought I peaked.
Yeah, every race I sign up, there's somebody that went a little farther. And so I started researching and look on YouTube, and you can do all these mountain races. And I'm like, oh, that's it. I don't like running on pavement. I'll go run in the mountains. And so I signed up for every mountain race that there was, and there's a lot in Alaska. So sometimes I was doing like 2 per week. And man, you think marathon runners are in good shape. Man, those mountain runners.
Oh my gosh.
Incredible, right? And so I started learning a whole lot about that. And then I was doing more research, and I learned people can run 100 miles in the mountains. And so in that year that I signed up for every race, the longest one was 50 miles. Mm-hmm. And I signed up for that, and turns out I really liked the longer ones. And the 50-mile race was my favorite one, and the one that I did the best in.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I really became attracted to these longer, like alone by myself or with these other, the running people are strange, man.
Kind of like real estate agents.
Yeah, there's just some really unique characters out there that are willing to run 50 miles through the mountains. And not that I fit in with them, right? So I really ended up enjoying that and found a lot of fun in that. And of course, growing up in Big Lake, I've always wanted to do the Iron Dog snow machine race.
Yeah.
2,600 miles across Alaska, just so amazing, incredible athletes. And so I've been doing that also, and I've just been really drawn to the longer distance things and found a lot of fun and fulfillment in those.
I love it.
Yeah.
I think that there's kind of this hallucination sometimes that people have when they see somebody who's successful or accomplished, mm-hmm. that they were just born to be the high school quarterback, or like it's all so natural and blah blah blah. But just thinking about this, it wasn't natural for you to go from not being a runner to loving 50-mile mountain races.
Yeah.
Right. That's a lot of hard work, and over the course of time, that hard work paying off and doing something for you, right? How do you see, because you lead a bunch of agents, how do you, if you were talking to somebody who's in their first 5 years of their career right now, and usually it's like their first couple, but the last 5 years have been pretty wonky, right? How would you overlay your endurance mindset with their career?
I would say two big principles come to mind, maybe three. So one we already covered. You have to really want to get to the other side of the growth. Will you like this if this goes well, right?
Yeah.
The other two that come to mind, one of them super simple is you can't get taken out. Right? So you can't do things that jeopardize your career in the beginning or ever, but like one of the keys to endurance and longevity is not getting taken out of the race. Right?
Yeah.
And it's so wild. Shorter distance, well, even the Iron Dog snow machine race, there's the first checkpoint is a place called Squentna, and it's about 70 miles. And we can go that distance really, really fast. It's tempting to go way too fast on day one. And the saying is, you can't win the race between Big Lake and Squentna, but you can certainly lose it. And every year there's people that they go too fast. They're all hopped up on adrenaline. And, we're going fast that section. It's on the river. We're going 80, 90, 100 miles an hour. But every year a couple of people wreck because they're going too fast and they're done with the race at the very first section of it, right? And so we see that in people's careers as well, right? They go too fast and they blow up their family. They go too fast and they blow up their health. They go too fast and they blow up their relationships, and then they're out of the race. They're out of their career, right? And there's other phases of that, but if you're going to be in it for the long haul, you can't do something that jeopardizes your longevity, which is those things. It's your family, it's your relationships, it's your health, and you can't be in the race if you take yourself out.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, okay. So once somebody gets past that point, what's next? Let me ask you this way: what do you do when the fatigue sets in?
Maybe if we back up a little bit, what you do when the fatigue sets in is you don't get there. Don't get to that point, right?
Okay.
And you're going to, right? You're going to with endurance things, but if if you're running, and people do this all the time when they're running these long distance races, they'll start and they should be running a long distance race. Maybe they should be running a 12 or 13 minute per mile pace, which is really slow, right? So I try to run a 12 or 13 mile per minute race, and I try to go that pace when I'm running. And if I'm running fast, I can run like a 7-minute mile. So it's almost twice as slow as I can run. But if I know I'm running for a long time, I'm going to run that pace and I won't get so fatigued that I crash, right? Same thing with the snow machine race. Like if we're going really long distance, we're going 70, 80% of our speed because we can't afford to get fatigued and crash. So same thing in a career, like don't go so fast that you totally deplete all of your resources that you can't keep going. And when that fatigue comes, go to the places that fill you up, right? So in the career, make sure you're having that steady input from people that you trust, steady information, steady things that are going to replenish you in your career, and more important in those other areas, replenish your relationships, replenish your spiritual health, your physical health, your mental health. And people just forget about those things like they're some kind of robot. I mean, I've done that. You've done that.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, why is my life the worst?
Yeah.
And then somebody kind will be like, what about your spiritual health? What about your physical health? What about your relationships? And you're like, nope, 0 out of 10. Oh, you wonder what's the matter with your business?
Yeah.
Right?
It's that.
Yeah, I mean, we're humans. So we're not meant to be like, this is the only thing I do all day, every day.
It makes me think about, so like when you're doing endurance things, you have your nutrition, you have electrolytes, you have your liquid intake, right? You have, if you're doing endurance cycling, you're paying attention to your cadence, right? You're doing the same thing when you're running, you're paying attention to your cadence, your speed, all these different things, maybe your heart rate. And you have these parameters that you want to run inside of, or bike or whatever. But also just thinking about, what are the skills, apart from just sheer willpower, what are the different skills and disciplines and habits that cause an agent to have more runway before they get to fatigue?
I would say the willingness this is a weird one, but the willingness to be bad, like to be not the best at their craft.
Okay.
Right. And so there's an easy application for this. Like a lot of my friends think it's incredible the running stuff that I do. Mm-hmm. And that's one room. Okay, so if you go in the room where I'm one of the runners, like I barely make it onto the t-shirt, right? And that's not a saying. Like I can show you all the t-shirts that I'm on and I'm like on the bottom right, you know, like the fastest dude is on the top left and I'm like almost off the t-shirt.
Yeah.
And so, but I don't care because I'm happy to be there, right? I'm happy to be part of that crew, happy to like, if I really hustle up this next ridge, I'll make the cutoff and they'll let me finish the race, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with snow machine racing. Like there's so many incredible athletes in that. And some people like enter in the race to win and they have to win. And I'm happy to be there. I want to do well, but there's some really fast people, right? So same thing in our real estate career, like play to win and be okay being bad for a while. Like you're there, learn the skills, be okay not knowing everything and don't freak out about that. Still enter the race, right? Show up every day and pick up the phone and talk to the clients, build the career. So being okay being bad at it and being learning based, super big skill. Second one is being coachable and like be ready to learn from other people. You never know who you can learn from. People who are smarter than you and maybe people who you're smarter than. Oh. Right?
Yeah.
I would say those are two of the biggest skills people can lean on. And there's a whole bunch of technical skills, but if you have those two things, you can get around the right people and pick up the right skill set.
I love it. It's funny because it makes me think of all the people that I've learned from over the years, some embarrassingly so, right? Or you see this person and you're just like, holy crap, if I have an ounce of humility, I'm going to learn this thing from this person. And they're just, sometimes it's almost like this, people that have figured out, I don't want to call it intentional laziness because it's just not quite the spirit of the thing. But, you know, here's this one person right here and they're just like, you know, I'm just out of sheer willpower, I'm going to do it. And this person over here has figured out like 3 ways to make all of this happen without willpower.
Yeah, they're like, that looks hard. Why wouldn't you just try it this other way?
Yeah, like, wow, that's like, you're trying to remember a lot.
Yeah.
You know, you can just use your calendar and put this stuff in, or you're doing this stuff and you're doing this and like everything. Yeah. Some people that are massively talented make things so hard because they can. Right. So they're not trying to make it hard. They have so much more bandwidth and maybe even willpower than the average person. Mm-hmm. But then you see this other person coming along and they've just kind of figured out how to do things a little easier. And so if you take this person and you give them this skill set over time, results are massive. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think about that in snow machine racing. There's my first year doing it, I got blisters all over my hands, right? Because I was holding on so tight. And I got the advice from another racer. He says, you need to barely hold on. You need to act like you're holding a little baby bird. Don't crush that baby bird, right? Yeah. And I'm like, how are you going to hold on when you're going 90 miles an hour through the bumps? He's like, you're riding right behind me. You see me do it every day. I'm like, okay. And it's interesting now moving on and like how calm and relaxed the best racers are. And you watch them and it's like they're hanging off the side of the sled. I mean, there's this one guy that smacked me on the butt when he passed me, you know, at 75 miles an hour through the bumps. And it's like, yeah, that's true. And we see that in business too. Like the farther you progress, the more calm you can be and the more relaxed and the less energy you expend, the less blisters you're going to have, right?
Yeah.
And you're not spending all the same energy and you're providing a better experience for everybody. And it's an interesting thing.
I love kind of going back to, anything worth doing is worth doing poorly at first or being bad at it.
Yeah.
And it's like, you don't get to be the guy who's holding on gently if you don't go through the, like, I've smoked out my arms and my shoulders, you just don't get to make that happen. And so we look at people who've been in the industry for a long time and they just make things look so easy.
Yeah, so graceful.
But I remember 5 years ago and, you remember the grind and just kind of the grit. So let's kind of land on that plane. Let's talk about grit. What happens, in endurance sports? I don't know if you've experienced this. I'm guessing you have. You've had to go to the pain cave. Mm-hmm. Well, for people that are not like psychotic. Like what is the pain cave? And
what do you mean? What?
It's not normal.
So there's this place that you get to where all of the stuff that we just talked about runs out. Right? Like, did you train? Yes. Did you prepare? Yes, absolutely. Did you read all the 20 best tips for how to prepare? Yes. And then that runs out, and you're still wandering through the mountains. And the running events I do are always point to point, which is on purpose, because you don't have any option to drop out, right? I don't want to give myself that choice. So you're always, well, I got 20 more miles to get to where I'm going, or I got 20 more miles to go back to where I just came from. Either way, I'm in the middle of it, right?
Yeah.
And in that time, everything hurts. Your body hurts. Your mind hurts. You're talking. Well, I'll speak for myself. I'm talking to myself. I'm arguing with all of my different selves, right?
Out loud.
Yeah, out loud. Encouraging Blake is fighting with mean Blake. And I'm just like, guys, why don't you get along? We're trying to do something here. And if you're listening to this and that's not been you, just go run in the mountains. It can be you too.
Yeah.
Right? So you get to this point where it's just, you don't have any other choice but to keep on moving, and you unlock different levels of motivation, different levels of things. And it's interesting because for me, when I've been able to go there and learn from that, I don't ever go back, right? So at the beginning, it was amazing to run 1 hour, and I was prepared and I was stretched and I had hydration and I had supplies and all that. Like, I could, at any given point right now, probably go run a marathon like in dress shoes with no supplies.
Yeah.
Right? And that's an interesting thing. So it's like once you get to those places, you unlock levels of confidence and ability and the knowing how to get through that again in the future. Same thing in snow machine world. Like, if the farthest you've ever gone is 200 miles away from your house, that's really far.
Yeah.
But on your way home, you're almost, you're like, oh yeah, we'll be there pretty soon. And you break down that far away and you're like, we got to call in the Coast Guard. We need rescue choppers. We need stuff. But then later on, you're 500 miles away and you're like, oh, this is no big deal. Yeah. So it puts all the smaller things in perspective.
Yeah, I love it. And I think about this idea of endurance and all the different layers of being bad and being okay with that, getting better, planning, having a goal in mind. There's just so many layers here. And I always go back to just think about, rightly so, we don't celebrate people that just give up or want easy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, we don't, when's the last time you watched a movie about somebody who had no conflict, no challenge, no nothing? It's like, we don't watch those movies because they either don't exist or they're just horrible.
I think Seinfeld was the first movie like that.
No, it might have been.
Or a TV show. Sorry. How many of those have you watched?
Like 2.
Yeah. That's 2 more than me.
It's like there's the conquest, there's the risk and all that stuff, and it's just interesting to me that I think for the majority of people, maybe everybody, when you watch a movie like that, you see yourself as the hero. You don't see yourself as extra number 56.
Yeah, well, we all want to be the hero of our own story, and it's not a good story if there's no adventure, from my perspective.
I love it. So thanks for sharing that. I think there's a lot of takeaways, and there's just these layers between just do it and stick with it that have all the different elements of training and growth and all that I think are super applicable.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe the last thought on this whole thing would be, when things go wrong, what's your attitude? Right. So we talked about the pain cave. We talked about the mindset going into it. But there's 2 different types of personalities, or 2 different reactions when things go wrong. People that think it's the end of the world and go like they're just mad. Other people, they're like, wow, I have never heard of this problem before. This is incredible. How could we possibly fix this?
Yeah.
And the second attitude are the ones that come up with the best stories. They have the most fun, and usually they get out of that predicament.
Yeah.
Right? They're not the people that have to call in the chopper. No disrespect. I haven't had to do that yet. But they're the ones that figured out with some baling twine and some zip ties, right?
Yeah.
Ask me how I know.
I love it.
Yeah.
Dude, thanks for being here. Thanks for taking the time, man, to impact and empower and encourage everybody watching.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
My pleasure.